All right, we're going to obviously address the elephant in the room, and that was the safety car that we saw towards the end of the race. There seemed to be a lot of confusion about the safety car originally when it came out. He could not find, I'm not sure who's driving the safety car. They couldn't find the race leader, being Max Verstappen at that point. And instead, they picked up with George Russell. Can you just take us through the confusion that was, and then ultimately how things played out?
Yeah, so there was a bit of upset around this because, of course, the race didn't then start again. The safety car never returned to the pits to allow the race to continue. It ended under the safety car. So that's why everyone was a bit annoyed about it. But these things do happen. And when the safety car comes out, it's for a good reason. And in this case, it was Daniel Ricciardo's car stuck at the side of the track, stuck in gear, so the marshals couldn't just push it to an opening in the fence. They had to get a crane out onto the track, a mobile crane, and lift it. And of course, whenever that happens, the FIA race control is very wary of the consequences, because we learned in 2014 with Jules Bianchi's accident that led to his death that if a car goes into the back of one of those cranes, it is a horrible, horrible mess. So they had to get the safety car out there in order to get rid of Daniel Ricciardo's car from the track as quickly as possible. Now, the safety car, it's great when it comes out in front of the leader. It's meant to find the leader, but sometimes that's just not possible. And in this case, they were trying to get that car clear as quickly as possible. So it picked up George Russell, and then all the cars bunched behind him. But that meant that Verstappen was at the back of that bunch because he was halfway around the track when the safety car came out, and so joined the back of it. And so you had all the cars in the wrong order. Now, of course, you can't restart the race like that. So by the time they had got rid of Ricciardo's car, they then had to reshuffle the order, let drivers through, and so that Verstappen was then the first car behind the safety car. And then you've got to get rid of the lap cars in between, which we know from the Abu Dhabi season finale last year is a very important thing to do. And within the regulations, that all unlapped cars that stuck between other cars must unlap themselves and rejoin the back of the pack. And the fact is, by the end of it, they didn't have enough time. Arguably, they could have started organising the order a little bit earlier. Mattia Bonotto was on Sky Sports saying as much after the race, that he felt that they should have much earlier released George Russell from behind, so that you get Verstappen at the front and then get all the cars in line. The problem with that is that they were still clearing Daniel Ricciardo's car, and there is video footage of the cars going past in the safety car train, and they're still going quite fast past that mobile crane. And so realistically, I think they did what was safe and what was the right thing to do. And yeah, like I said, then the clues in the name, the safety car, it's about making the situation as safe as possible. And then if you get a chance to restart, you restart. But there's nothing in the rules that says you have to force a restart. The teams will want to see racing on the final lap. Everyone wants to see the race finish under a green flag conditions, but it's just not always possible. And in this case, it wasn't. Now, of course, there's parallels to Abu Dhabi where they kind of forced that a little bit. And of course, that didn't go unnoticed at the end of the race. But yeah, in this situation, while it wasn't perfect, I think given the emphasis on safety, they did the right thing.
Okay, obviously, Lewis Hamilton had some nightmares from a year ago, as you mentioned. He had some strong comments after the race. Let me ask you this. As we're talking about possibly restructuring points and the FIA is always looking to evolve, do you think there should be a situation where if something like this does happen and we're possibly going to end a race under a safety car, should there be like a timeout of sorts where people go back to the pits, they stay in their cars, they're not able to adjust anything in that moment, but there's a timeout which gives the marshals time to clear Daniel Ricciardo's car, and then they restart all together and we can see racing to the end?
Yeah, so this was brought up by a number of people after the race. And I think in this circumstance, it would have been far more entertaining, wouldn't it? We would have seen the race finish off. We would have seen maybe Charles Leclerc being able to have a go at Max Verstappen up Monza for the victory for Ferrari. And that would be great. And personally, yes, I think that would make the sport more exciting. It would lead to more exciting finishes to races, because finishing behind a safety car is not always ideal. But there would always be the danger that there's another situation where, let's say, I don't know, I'm just going to pick a name at random. Sebastian Vettel in an Aston Martin is leading on the final lap of his final race in Abu Dhabi. and then had the race ended under a safety car, he would have won his final race, and it would have been this brilliant story. But they did this red flag thing, and then they restarted the race, and he got easily passed into the first corner. And then by, let's say, Max Verstappen, who had just won the last 5 races, then everyone would be like, oh, why did we ever change it? We could have had a Sebastian Vettel. So you've got to be careful what you wish for. You've got to look at all the options. And F1 did go through all of this after Abu Dhabi. They looked at potential options of better ways of finishing races. And while everyone agreed that it's not ideal to finish a race under a safety car, they also couldn't agree on another way to do it. So they have already had this conversation. I do wonder whether the Monza thing, because, it did seem a bit clumsy and it was such a big anticlimax, will maybe change a few minds on that. And as we know, with Stefano Domenicali's comments we talked about earlier in the show, there's always appetite to kind of maybe change things and continue to push ideas, even if they were rejected the first time. So I think it'd be interesting if we saw that. I don't really see a downside to doing that, a kind of red flag situation at the end of the race to make sure we get at least 1 or 2 racing laps if a safety car's out there towards the end. The only downside is that, it can be quite a slow process bringing all the cars into the pits, sending them all back out, gridding them up, letting them go. But as long as the TV companies don't mind having that extra slot of window, if they get a better show, then it's the kind of thing I would actually be all for. But again, we'll have this whole debate between the ones that want the entertainment and the purists who say, motor racing is just the way it is, leave it how it is, But I think first and foremost, it's got to be safety first. And in this instance, with the regulations we have at the moment, that's exactly what the FIA did in Monza. Whether we then change that going forward, I think it's a good conversation to open. But I'd be surprised given that it was pretty much rejected after Abu Dhabi.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content plus live streaming, make sure to subscribe to ESPN Player.